Why does Russia show endless aggression?
You're asking me?
It's a deeply traumatic political structure. It's a deeply traumatized society.
Well, there's a time for compromise and sacrifice the territory. Guys, you don't know what you're talking about. We are survivors. We survived through all those empires, which were so much bigger than Ukraine. There's no chance, not Putin, not anybody else. We are the nation of warriors.
I like to say that I myself am rarely shocked by anything that Russia does, but sometimes, even sometimes, you think like, I thought we'd hit the bottom of the barrel, but no, the barrel doesn't just have a new level. It's like a black hole. There is no perception of what freedom is.
Hello, I'm Jenny Klochko. You're watching my podcast. Today, my guest is Jonathan Fink, the host of the YouTube channel Silicon Curtain. We will discuss his discovery of Ukraine and his coverage of Ukrainian war, being in Oxford with regular visits to Ukraine. Hi,
That's it. Hi there.
how are
Good
you
to
today?
see you.
Yes,
Not bad.
likewise. So, you've been fascinated with Russian culture, Russian literature, whatsoever Russian. Spent some time in Russia, and was it 3 years ago you starting the channel pro-Ukrainian? And I noticed I was listening to a few interviews, and first of all, a part of the host of the Silicon Curtain, you also introduced as the most pro-Ukrainian, the most influential in pro-Ukraine position. And I was thinking, was this and when this shift happened? Because I think in a way it's generational. And I
Yes.
worked with people with in the British media, sort of who were studying and learning about Russia, and some of them still can't give up and accept the evil and face the reality. So where's your shift came into tact?
I'm going to give a sort of odd answer here. I didn't shift. I haven't been involved in the media, and I haven't been in academia for a very long time. Since I finished as MA at Edinburgh. It's a long time ago, in 1997, I think it was. So, pre-Putin era. And after I traveled a lot and lived a lot in Russia. From 92 onwards, I started studying and did my first trip to Moscow in 1992. Lenin was still on the currency.
Yeah, so I don't think I had that many delusions about what Russia was an entity. What I've been doing since then is sort of joining the dots, filling in the gaps, trying to build out this picture of the puzzle, how it got that way, why it functions, what's the logic behind it, which can seem so difficult for Western analysts to actually penetrate. Why does Russia show endless aggression? Why does it behave like this? The process of not just filling out those gaps, but also understanding more about those countries on Russia's periphery that formed the targets of its imperial action, and learning more about Ukraine, for instance.
You're asking me.
No, I mean, well, you're based in the UK.
Yes, I am.
A lot of conversations with people, and you have these endless conversations trying to educate people about what it is. I mean, what are your challenges in understanding the enemy and also communicating that to friends and colleagues?
Uh, well, that's you see, there are people in my kind of like circulation. There are people uh, I am familiar through media. So we work together because I'm more than 20 years in journalism, and so those they don't need to be explained. They get it, or they choose not to understand or get into go into details. So the challenges within the British people, there are people who want to know or know a lot, and we have interesting conversations, and we speculate and exchange of ideas. And there are people who choose not to, and they have right to that. And sometimes, just a few months ago, I've heard the question, "Oh, is there still war in Ukraine?" It's like, well, yeah, daily. And that's, until the missile hits your house, until your family is affected, people choose not to. And at some point, there was in Ukraine, and while East was invaded and Crimea was annexed, some people still were going on holidays and, you know, treating themselves with something nice, which is fine. But I think it's somehow subconsciously we protect ourselves from things we might not be able to handle. So I'm for me it's different, and I got used to it. That it is different, and since I was 6, I became politically active, and in
6.
1991.
That's an early start.
No, I don't know how it's happened. It's just, I remember the first president elections in Ukraine, and my family was for Vyacheslav Chernovil, who is pro-Ukrainian. He's one of dissidents. He's basically like spiritual figure and, amazing person. And I remember myself running on sort of like during my PE lesson and making sure that my PE teacher is voting for Vyacheslav Chernovil because we need, uh, sort of Ukraine needs it. And my first school was gymnasium, and the head teacher of that gymnasium was dissident, and he was taken into the psychiatric asylum because he was just supporter of Ukrainian identity and culture. He was just a teacher who wanted to read and introduce his children to the Ukrainian literature. So obviously he was punished. So I remember those bits, and Russian lie and chauvinism. I'm from central Ukraine. I'm not from the West, who has the stereotype they're more patriotic or anything. No, I went through this sort of like through my history lessons at school, through my family history, because my grandma, she told me everything about Holodomor, how many people were left, and she was saying, um, if you come outside at night in the village, in normal life, you would hear dogs, you would hear animals doing any sounds. During the time of Holodomor, it was absolutely quiet because cats, dogs, everything was eaten. There was nothing. And she was sort of witness. There were people who ate own babies, all those atrocities where people were conditioned to sort of like survive through impossible. And this is where Putin will choke and Russia will choke, because if we, the nation, in order to survive, sacrificed, the dearest to our heart, oh, he won't defeat us. He will break. He just doesn't understand that all this still resistance. It's been shaped through hundreds of years. There's no chance for him, no matter what he says or how some of his allies or useful idiots speculate about his mysterious soul or him safe in the face. It's just ridiculous. If they don't know about Ukrainian resistant fight, and no necessarily through revolutions, just being there. Do you know, I have interesting situation in 2012 when, I don't know, are you the fan of football?
I'm afraid I'm not. That's already going to lose me some subscribers,
Is
but no.
the name David James tell you anything? So he was the goalkeeper. He's the legend, and he was invited to Ukraine by BBC Sport. I was working for BBC Sport back then, and I was looking after him. And basically, what does it mean? I'm coming in the morning to his hotel, picking him up, and we just spend the whole day. And by the end of during his lives and everything, and then he's delivered, and the next day at the same time. I think during that time he was awarded MBE. Is it correct? For his charity work. So anyway, and one of the activities he sort of like, it was very strange because he asked me, can we go to Ukrainian History Museum? And I would like to have the tour about on the history of Ukraine. I was surprised because I had a work with other football legends who were in Ukraine, but no one wanted that. So we went to Ukraine, and I was translating for him to the museum, and I was translating for him. And my shock was, I was always good in history. I liked history, it wasn't something new, but there's my revelation, my own revelation, that how can we survive? How could is this possible? How possible that we have the state? How possible that we have the language? How possible that we have the heritage, which is like over 1,000 years old? How's that possible if, it's like on every turn of the history, obstacles, 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 and punishment and everything. And now, since 2014, I mean, I was participation of Orange Revolution 2004. Now, sort of the Revolution of Dignity, I was already in the UK, and I had newborn baby, so I couldn't be able there. Now I'm not on the front line, but it's my bleeding wound. But I know we will go through this. We will win, and it doesn't matter how some people, especially among the British speaking heads on Ukrainian conflict, said, well, there's a time for compromise and sacrifice the territory. Guys, you don't know what you're talking about. We are survivors. We survived through all those empires, which were so much bigger than Ukraine. There's no chance, not Putin, not anybody else. We are the nation of warriors.
And this isn't a Russia, the Soviet entity was, once they consolidated power, it was strong. The Tsarist Empire was weak and strong at the same time. So you were fighting something which was, I mean, the Tsarist Empire in the late 19th century was developing secret police. It was developing quite a substantial, industrial base. Parts of Ukraine, of course, within the empire were built up. It was a wealthy entity that's able to project power and suppression. You're dealing with Russia now, which is yes, it's kind of strong, but strong in a weak kind of way. I would say it's an entirely degenerate entity. Um, Cooperation is poor, innovation is poor, because that's the way it's organized. Corruption is, if anything, even worse than it was in the Soviet period. I mean, this is a highly degenerate empire. So I think your chances of defeating it, if not directly retaking all the territories now, I kind of believe that chances of retaking all the territories at some point in the near future, especially when Russia disintegrates further, I agree. I think they're quite high.
Absolutely. And on disintegration, have you seen the map in Kirill Budanov office when the Russia is a bunch of sort of communities, let's call it like that. And yeah, it's kind of like it's my light at the end of the tunnel. And if Ukraine didn't have a chance, they would take within 3 days. But
Yeah.
no, this if we resisted back then, and the people that actually who are fighting or um, creating different things. For example, not long time ago, I had the commander of Secret Group 13, who is destroying ships in the Black Sea in Crimea. Do you know? I mean, a part of the fascinating thing he does and his team, and Ukraine doesn't have fleet. Russia doesn't have any influence in the Black Sea, and then just recently, his group took down 3 helicopters using just sea drones. Think about this creativity and this adventurous spirit. It's amazing, isn't it? So I'm fascinated, and of course, it's going through the pain, because it's my country, and I lost friends, I lost people I worked, journalists who joined in February 2022, and they sacrificed their life. So yes, it is, but I promised myself that I'll hold it till the victory, and then probably I'll let myself get it out, everything. And there was
Yes, I think a lot of people are doing that. Yeah, those who are under fire in various Ukrainian cities. It's a point of survival and resilience now, but the accumulated pain. I mean, Russia, as we were talking about earlier, is it's a deeply traumatic political structure. It's a deeply traumatized society, and it seems to me, from my experience directly there, it's designed from generation to generation to reimpose that trauma, not to clear it up and solve it, not, for central government to say, okay, we have these problems, we have these issues, we have these, traumatized people. How can we go and fix it? No, it seems to me the purpose of government is to figure out new and more ingenious ways to perpetuate the trauma, because when you do that, you can control people. When you do that, you can control the resources, etc. You can manipulate them through fear and through misguided ideas. And unfortunately, it's a lack of understanding of this, I think, which means that people will say, "Ah, yes, but Ukraine needs to be realistic." No, people who say Ukraine needs to be realistic have no idea what the reality is, no conception whatsoever of the reality. The challenge, of course, is that trauma and pain spills out to all the countries on Russia's periphery, whether it be Georgia, Ukraine, etc. They can't help but project that kind of abusive and traumatized behavior onto other people because they want everybody to be at their level. And I think it's about control, but it's also about, why should Ukrainians live better than me? No, come on down to our level.
Yeah, let's stall the toilets. Um, do you see the difference of perception of British among British viewers of your audience at the beginning of the full-scale invasion and now? Sort of like, is the discourse changed, or it's sort of like still Ukrainians and Russians the same? As long as Putin send nukes to our houses, we are fine. Let's not provoke him. What's the general mood from your British audience?
I don't think it's changed too much. I mean, again, I think a lot of people have been sort of filling in the gaps and learning more. And I get a lot of comments where people will say, "I knew it was bad, and I knew Russia was wrong, but I just didn't realize how wrong." So I think it's a question of taking people down a journey of greater understanding. It's different, I think, in Germany, it's different in France, it's different in other places where they have this memory of sort of detente and talking with the Soviets and, trying to create some peaceful coexistence or even celebrating Russian and Soviet culture, perhaps a lot more than we did in Britain. We were at the cutting edge of the Cold War, of course, in protecting the western flank there on Germany and a partner of the US in that enterprise. So I'm not sure we quite had the same kind of delusions, and of course, communist ideology not as deeply entrenched here as it was, say, in Italy and other places. So I don't think it's a case of like, we're having to convert people and from one point of view, but we're taking on the journey of understanding what Russia is and how it is far more, I would say, toxic than even many people who've been deeply suspicious of it could even, imagine. I like to say that I myself am rarely shocked by anything that Russia does, but sometimes, even sometimes, you think like, I thought we'd hit the bottom of the barrel, but no, the barrel doesn't just have a new level. It's like a black hole, the barrel is infinite. Um, but some of the idiocy. But then if you've lived in Russia at all, maybe you haven't, maybe never been there. Quite a few of my Ukrainian guests will say, like, yeah, I've never been there, and I have no desire, obviously, to go ever. But if you have, you kind of know that anything can happen any day. Uh, it's completely unpredictable. Life is vague and unpredictable, and it can be quite sort of dangerous as well. That kind of gives people, trauma seekers a bit of a thrill, not knowing what's going to happen next. But what it does also tell you is that it's not a rules-based society. It's not a society that values human life, and it's not a society that has the same perception of what is order and what is security than we do. And I emphasize on the channel over and over, there is no perception of what freedom is.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter if there's no fashion, there's no real desire for it.
Yeah, the
They don't
slavery in the
understand it and
brain.
they don't want it.
Yeah, absolutely. When slavery is in the brain, you can't explain anything. You can't help anything. How regular do you go to Ukraine?
I've only been once.
Once.
Only once.
Well, and you go soon again. Is there something
Yes,
you're
going again.
looking forward to? I understand you have busy work schedule, but there's something you have for your soul, for your pleasure, and you can't wait to have or enjoy it when you're in Ukraine.
Yes, simple pleasure is going back to the Partisan restaurant that's in Lviv, because that's a great experience. And the food was fantastic. And, all the waiters and waitresses dressed in, partisan national uniforms from, and it's just a great experience there. And it's deeply weird. Um,
Do you mean do you mean Kryivka?
yeah, I think so. That's the one
Ah,
underground where you
yes,
go
yeah, yeah,
underground
yeah.
and
And
yeah,
you have
yeah,
to
yeah.
say the password to be allowed
That's right.
in. Yeah,
Correct.
I love
Yes.
that. So, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, they don't really mind if you don't know the password, but F Putin or F Russia usually gets you through the door there. Um, I'm gonna go hopefully back to see Superhumans because
Oh,
that was an
yes.
experience. I thought it would be deeply, deeply depressing. And of course it is very impactful. But it was also inspiring in a way that I just hadn't expected. So I hope to go back there. It's been a year, over a year, because it was August 23 when we last recorded an event and did all these trips. I've never been to Kiev, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing some of the sites and just getting a sense or a flavor of Kiev. I've read quite a few of Andrei Korkov's novels recently, some especially the ones that set around Kiev. That was another aspect, coming back to the history thing. I mean, I knew that the civil war spilled out into Ukraine and eventually the Bolsheviks took Ukraine. I literally had no idea of how nationalistic or imperialistic the white forces were. And if only, you know, this of course was impossible, but if only they'd been a little bit more liberal or sided with Ukraine, then history would have been entirely different. But no, it was another flavor of nationalism. But I had no idea how many times Kiev was taken and retaken and retaken and retaken. I mean, it's the sheer chaos unleashed by that. That was extraordinary. So I'd like to go and see some of the sites there and map it to some of the books I've started reading about that. It's going to be busy, so there's going to be a lot of interviews. So as you say, there's probably not that much time to sort of do too much. But when I went to Lviv in 23, the best experience, and it's one I hadn't really expected, was actually going out to the village. It was a hot summer. I went to the dacha. The person I was staying with had a little 4x4 and he loves driving in the countryside. So we just drove all day, stopping, having a drink, having a meal, picking up people who wanted a lift on the way and just chatting to random strangers. We went to I think it might have been a Catholic shrine, but there was a shrine out in the countryside with a cold spring that gets channeled down into a kind of bathing pool. And there were a lot of civilians there, but there are a lot of soldiers there who'd obviously come from the front for a week or a weekend or whatever to get some kind of calm and recharge their batteries. And just seeing, the different attitudes, the different faces, and some of the people clearly must have gone through a lot, and they just wanted that moment of sort of quiet calm in nature. Just those little experiences, and I'm looking forward to the things that you cannot predict, but inevitably, hopefully, we will get to experience.
Oh, definitely. Ukraine is always amazing experience, and the energy, the inspiration you take from there is amazing. Um, I wish you enjoyable trip. Feel jealous. I can't go at the moment. Good luck with everything. Stay safe. And it's such a pleasure to meet you. And finally, because my subscribers quite some time in the comments were saying you should get in touch with Silicon Cat, and it's like, okay. Yeah, but now sort of like we made it true.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And keep in touch.
Thank you. Definitely keep in touch. I'll let you know how the trip goes. And
Oh, yes.
for the audience, yeah, I'm sure there'll be more collaborations, more projects, even live streams and various things we can plan because
Absolutely.
we're all in the same informational fight.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
We had a cooperation with Silicon Curtain. Thank you for your ideas. It's been great pleasure. It was interesting and new perspective for me. And thank goodness we have people like Jonathan Fink and Silicon Curtain to help with educating, covering, and explaining. As it's turned out, there's a lot of historical and political and cultural events are not known to the wider Western audience. Well, hopefully we'll uncover more topics together and all the questions will be answered. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think. Is there something you agree, disagree, you would like to add, or maybe you have questions? I will be happy to answer. And just remind you that now I'm publishing the episodes on Sunday, 6 o'clock in the evening, and having two lives. One is Monday evening, 7:30, and another one on Thursday, 7:30 UK time. Thank you for watching. I'm Jenny Klochko. Bye.